You guys, it's your boy Mikey. Today we're talking about superhero fatigue. The trailer of Avengers Doomstay just drops, and I just feel nothing. Like we're just tired of this slop, like goy slop fed to us.
New Avengers Doomsday trailer is finally here, and I felt absolutely nothing. Not excitement or curiosity, or even that little spark of hope where you want to say, hey, maybe Marvel's back. Just nothing. I almost felt guilty
maybe it's like a grown up thing. Like we go through certain phases, and we got to the childish phase of our lives. We just grow it up, and maybe that's the reason. Like we don't even actually like have the superhero fatigue, but like I don't know. I mean, young people also share the same view. Like we don't get anything from like Avengers Doomsday. Trailer, like no hype. Like we don't get anything. Maybe just concealing all the good parts. Even so, like this shit feels like I don't even want to watch it. I don't even watch the trailer. Like I got so bored halfway within the trailer itself. That just tells you about something.
about it. 10 years ago, a new Avengers trailer would have been an event. I'd be watching it frame by frame, hunting for hidden details.
Yo, we all remember those days where we like frame for frame, like we analyze all this shit and we watch like other YouTubers actually like explaining, the cameos and fucking shit, like explaining every detail frame by frame. Now we don't even actually care. Maybe like a cultural there was like a cultural shift from superhero shit, super fatigue to like anime and other avenues of like entertainment, but this just feels so bland and boring anymore. Like I don't even watch this Doomsday. Like it is like effectively a goy slot fed to us.
Arguing with strangers online over every little tease, counting down the days until release. And this time I watched it and just kind of sat there. The trailer wasn't bad or anything, I was just numb. Thing is, Marvel actually seems to have learned a few lessons. They're holding back major surprises instead of cramming the entire movie into a 2-minute trailer. Spider-Man is nowhere to be found, Wolverine's missing, Deadpool doesn't show up. They're finally giving audiences a reason to actually buy a ticket instead of spoiling every big moment 6 months early. That's a good thing. Oh, and Thor's back. The X-Men finally got their long-awaited Avengers debut. Doctor Doom is hanging over the entire movie. All good things, and there's enough spectacle and enough mystery to get people talking. So on paper, this trailer should have worked on me. Instead, I kept coming back to one thought: the Temu Avengers. I genuinely don't know how else to describe.
Bro, like the new set of Avengers, like forget it's like a black Iron Man. Like I don't even keep that for this shit. Like the new set of like force diversity, like new set of superheroes. Like it's just so like I don't even watch Thunderbolts, all that shit. Like just so effing boring. Like even the concept of it, like
Describe this lineup: Lady Black Panther, Papa Doc, Yelena replacing Natasha, just one replacement after another. And none of them feel like the next generation, they feel like substitutes. And every time I look at them, I just think of how we got
no way we got a Lady Black Panther. Come on, bro. Like this is crazy.
here. Marvel, a studio that spent years trying to recreate lightning in a bottle by swapping costumes instead of creating new icons. They thought all they had to do was
I still give credit to the first Avengers movie. That was one of the best Marvel movies ever. Like first Avengers movie, that was just blockbuster. Like I would still rewatch the movie today. Like, but this after Endgame, like everything feels so like slop, like superhero slop. It doesn't feel like something genuine or authentic. Like it just feels like regurgitated slop to to appeal to the younger audience also, especially the humor and jokes itself. Like it got so fucking boring. Like I'm talking about Spider-Man humor. Like have you actually like seen fucking Spider-Man like movies like the new ones? Bro, the humor is like not even worth mentioning, bro. Like it's just so sad, bro.
thought all they had to do was hand somebody the shield, the hammer, or the suit, and we'd magically care as much as we did about Steve Rogers or Tony Stark. Yeah, well, that's not how that works. Then, whenever audiences pushed back, Marvel rarely seemed interested in asking whether the movies simply weren't good enough. It was sexism, racism, review bombing, whatever explanation was easiest that week. Apparently, it couldn't just be that people didn't like She-Hulk or the Marvels. But anyway, yeah, that
Yeah, because there's forced bullshit, not just diversity bullshit, like forced feminism bullshit. Even with She-Hulk itself, like the movie is terrible. Like people shouldn't find excuses why the movie flopped, bro. Like it's painfully terrible. There's not a single like masculine presence. The reason why like Avengers and all these things were successful is like there has been like a masculine presence. It's like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, these are heavy hitters. But people love to see a masculine presence also, like
That's what the
which
Tampa
is clearly lacking in like a main heavy hitter superhero squad. Like it's clearly lacking in the new Doomstay.
Avengers represent to me. Years of bad decisions
I know there's like serials and shit, but like it's not the same without like an Iron Man or like
and excuses. Years of a studio that stopped taking accountability. So when I watched the Doomsday trailer, it bothered me that I felt nothing. Probably because there was a time when that would have been impossible. To understand why that feeling bothered me so much, you have to understand what the MCU used to be. But my love for Marvel didn't start with the MCU, it started with Spider-Man. Like so many kids, Spider-Man was my gateway into comic books. One character turned into 10. Suddenly, I'd fallen headfirst into this universe of heroes, villains, crossovers, and stories that felt larger than life. Then in 2008, Marvel somehow pulled off the impossible. The thing I'd spent years reading suddenly became the biggest movie franchise on the planet. I was there for the midnight premieres. I wasted hours on message boards reading theories and connecting dots that probably didn't even exist. We'd argue about where Red Skull went, if Thor's magic would work in a more grounded world like Iron Man's, which is funny to think about now. We discussed where the Infinity Stones actually were and what S.H.I.E.L.D. was hiding. Every little detail felt important because Marvel had earned our trust that eventually it would all pay off. And I know I wasn't the only one. This became our obsession. The MCU went from a movie franchise to a genuine cultural phenomenon. You'd walk into work on Monday and everyone had seen the latest Marvel movie. Friends planned opening nights weeks in advance. Entire theaters exploded when
yeah, all the theaters booked and shit. Like we all remember those days, but
Captain America picked up Thor's hammer, or when he finally said Avengers Assemble. Every trailer became an event, and every post-credit scene fueled months and sometimes years of theories. It felt like the whole world was following one giant story together. I've honestly never seen anything else like it. And back then, it felt like Marvel could do no wrong. Sure, not every movie was great. Nobody's putting Thor: The Dark World in their top 5. But it didn't matter. We trusted the bigger picture, baby. We trusted Kevin Feige. We thought that even if one movie missed, the next one would get us right back on track. And man, there was always another movie, another theory, another, post-credit scene, another Avengers film somewhere on the horizon. It felt like the good times were never going to end, and for a bit there, I think most of us actually believed it. Looking back, I think the first cracks started to appear around Captain Marvel, though. And no, not because
Captain Marvel was one of the worst movies ever, like made in history of movies. Like I actually watched that. I know, like in theaters itself. Like I wanted this, like,
Brie
but
Larson
f myself.
single-handedly derailed the MCU, something just felt different about this one. Up until then, the conversation was almost always about the movies. Then Captain Marvel came out, and suddenly the conversation wasn't really about
Not the story, like I like not even the execution of the movie itself. Even the actress is so such a bitch. Like so crazy.
Captain Marvel anymore. It became about Brie Larson's press tour. It was culture war arguments and identity politics. Whether you agreed with Brie Larson or not almost became secondary because the movie itself got
Almost like they're using the superhero, not something like children actually love and adore. They're using this as a conduit, like to promote other agendas. Like that's what it feels like when you're watching Captain Marvel, like She-Hulk, any of these movies. It's almost like a some kind of hidden agenda. Not hidden, like blatantly obvious. Like it's like a forced feminism bullshit. Hidden agenda, and they're like putting it on a superhero guise and selling it to like children. That's what it feels like.
buried under everything happening around it. Looking back, that's the first time I remember Marvel becoming part of the culture war instead of sitting outside it. Then came Avengers Endgame, and even Endgame had that scene. You know the one, that silly all-girl team-up during the final battle? It felt manufactured, because it was. Like you could almost see Disney execs standing just off camera, congratulating themselves. And almost everybody agreed it was awkward. Men thought it was forced, women thought it was forced. It wasn't an earth-shattering controversy. It was worse than that. It was cringe. But none of it really mattered. Marvel had spent over a decade earning our trust. One awkward press tour wasn't going to undo that. One clumsy scene wasn't going to undo that. Every franchise has a few bumps in the road, right? Could be worse. It could be the DCEU, right? Besides, Endgame had just become one of the biggest movies ever made. Marvel wasn't slipping. Marvel was untouchable. I mean, at least, that's what we thought. Looking back now, those cracks seem obvious. But back then, they looked like tiny imperfections in something we were convinced would last forever. Then the dam broke. Marvel hit us with what I could only describe as a trilogy of terror. First came Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, a movie that should have been
Bro,
impossible
that is like the catalyst of downfall itself, the multiverse of madness. Other than that, I don't even watch any Marvel movies
to
ever.
screw up. You got the multiverse, Sam Raimi, Doctor
I stopped
Strange,
watching
Wanda.
Marvel
This
movies.
was a LeBron James tomahawk slam dunk waiting to rake in a billion. Instead, it was a train wreck. Doctor Strange somehow wasn't even the main character in his own movie. The plot twisted itself into knots to serve Wanda, lurching from one shitty set piece to the next. Whoa, stop on green and go on red, guys. How wacky. All the while making an infinite multiverse feel small. Then somehow Marvel topped that trash. Thor Love and Thunder is still one of the most baffling movies I've ever seen. Every emotional scene got interrupted by a shitty joke, and every serious moment got
Yo, I also watched this movie, bro. Like, I even forgot about this movie. Like, the movie was painful. The humor was painful. Like, it was painfully childish. Like, I think like Christian Bale was in this movie. Like, yes, the villain. I don't know. I forgot even the name. What the story was like. But it was always just humor, like childish humor after humor. Like, and it ruined the mood of the movie itself. Like, it's movies for fucking children. Like, totally disregard like the seriousness of the issue of the movie. Like, there were no like stakes. Also,
undercut. Meanwhile, Christian Bale is acting his ass off, but the movie seems embarrassed that he's trying. I once described watching it as sucking a fart out of an ass. I still think that's pretty accurate. And oh man, then came She-Hulk. To this day, I
yeah,
think
at that point I stopped watching. Like,
it's one of the worst television shows I've ever watched. The only way I've been able to describe it is this. It feels like a misandrous therapy session disguised as cape shit. If we're accounting, that's 3 different projects, 3 different directors, and they all landed with the same dull thud. Marvel spent over a decade buying goodwill from audiences and then burned through a shocking amount of it in what felt like a blink of an eye. It wasn't just a bad movie anymore. For the first time since the MCU began, it felt like something was seriously wrong. If it had stopped with Doctor Strange, Thor 4, and She-Hulk, Marvel probably would have recovered. Every franchise has a rough year. It just didn't recover, though. That trilogy of terror turned out to be the opening act. Next came Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, a movie put in an impossible position after Chadwick Boseman's tragic passing. That said, though, I still think it's another narrative mess. It's trying to process grief, continue the franchise, build the world, introduce new characters, and set up Marvel's future all at the same time. It absolutely sucked. But nothing could prepare us for what came next. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Fuck you!
I
bruh.
think this one broke the MCU. Remember, Kang was supposed to be the next Thanos.
Of course, it's Ant-Man.
This was the villain Marvel expected to carry the next 3 phases. The guy we were supposed to fear for years. Then he gets his ass kicked by Ant-Man and socialist ants. What the fuck? The MCU's next great existential threat gets beaten by nerdy ants. If you pitched that as a comedy sketch to me 5 years earlier, I would have fired
What
you.
the
Marvel
fuck?
decided to take it seriously. And they still weren't finished. Then came the Marvels. Another movie that made an already struggling franchise feel even more directionless. By this point, audiences were largely checked out. Yep, they were done. But then suddenly, a pulse. Deadpool and Wolverine. For 2 whole hours, it felt like Marvel remembered why people fell in love with these movies in the first place. Then they followed it up with Captain America Brave New World. Notice how this shit list just goes on and on? A stitched together turd fest
I didn't even watch this movie. Was this movie even good? Like,
that reportedly cost somewhere around $500 million and still wasn't finished. God, what a crime against cinema that one was. Endless reshoots, story rewrites. By that point, one thing became painfully obvious. Marvel had no idea where this universe was going anymore. As if all this wasn't enough, the MCU got hit by something it couldn't have planned for. This time it was happening in real life. Jonathan Majors, the actor playing Kang, was arrested, and the allegations were serious to say the least. Overnight, the man Marvel had spent a phase and a half building into the next Thanos became a real-world liability. Now, any studio can end up in that situation. Life happens, but instead of just recasting Kang and sticking to the plan, they basically erased him. The central villain of the multiverse saga. The character everything was supposedly building toward. Just gone after Loki Season 2. Poof. Imagine if Marvel had spent years building up Thanos only to quietly write him out halfway through
they can recast somebody. Why do I have to wipe the character out? Like, that just seemed like.
the Infinity Saga because the actor left. That's exactly what happened with Kang. It's one of the biggest reasons the multiverse saga feels so directionless. One of the many, yeah. The multiverse already barely had any rules. Characters bounced between universes whenever the plot needed them to. Variants existed until they didn't. Incursions and whatnot, yada yada. The stakes became harder and harder to follow because there was nothing concrete. By that point, instead of a well laid out story like Phase 1 through 3, it felt like they were making it up as they went. Because they were. They were trying to rebuild the biggest saga they'd ever attempted while the audience was already checking out.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
One thing that's surprising I've found is a lot of people don't know that the MCU borrows heavily from the modern day comics. The original Avengers owes a lot to the Ultimates. Secret Wars will owe a lot to Jonathan Hickman's modern version of that story. For years, Marvel Comics was basically the MCU's research and development department. But adapting modern comics means also adapting stories that hadn't worked. You know the drill: replacement heroes, legacy characters, new versions of Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, and a bunch of other icons. But comic readers had already rejected a lot of this stuff. These weren't hidden gems waiting to be discovered. In many cases, people had already voted with their wallets. So why build your biggest movie franchise around them? It felt like creative bankruptcy. Marvel seemed convinced that if you gave someone the shield, people would automatically love the new Captain America. Give someone the hammer, they loved the new Thor. Give someone the armor, they loved the new Iron Man. But people didn't love Steve Rogers because he carried his shield. They loved Steve Rogers. They didn't love Tony because he wore a suit. They loved Tony. You can't shortcut that. You have to earn it. After all, that's exactly what made the Infinity Saga work. But the response is really what drove a wedge between the audience and Marvel. Instead of looking inward and asking why so many fans weren't connecting with these projects anymore, Marvel often seemed to look outward.
Yeah, you can see the lack of character building. Like, character building is like crucial to the story. And you can see that they're putting a lot of fucking shit in without like giving time itself to build that character itself. Like, the multiverse concept like falls flat of any fucking any fucking good shit. Like, it falls flat of any fucking compliments. Like, bruh, it's one of the most boring fucking shit ever.
Said. The writing and or horrible characters weren't the issue. We were the issue. If She-Hulk wasn't landing, the conversation quickly drifted toward misogyny. If people criticized Black Panther 2, surely it's racism. Whether that came from interviews or social media surrounding these movies, a lot of the fans walked away with the same feeling. If you don't like this, maybe you're the problem. Gaslighting your audience became Marvel's go-to move, managing to sidestep the question, what if people just didn't think it was very good? Diversity became the only apparent creative goal, and it also felt like a shield that protected bad storytelling from criticism. Like I said, the irony is a lot of this had already happened in the comics. Readers had already rejected plenty of those ideas. So when the movie-going audience rejected these characters, they doubled down, making the gap between Marvel and its audience even wider. And it eventually became clear that Marvel not only didn't understand its own characters anymore, it didn't understand its own viewers. And you know, the part that still makes me laugh is back in 2022, right after Thor Love and Thunder, I made an entire video about how Marvel could save the MCU. The argument was straightforward. The franchise needed anchor characters again. Yes, I said anchor characters in the video. Characters people already loved, characters audiences actually trusted. I said Wolverine and Doctor Doom. I might have called it, but these were the obvious answers. And shockingly, the ones Marvel actually decided to go with when they hit the panic button. A panic button hit because Marvel had spent years trying to replace icons instead of creating new ones. It simply wasn't working. If you wanted to steady the ship, you needed characters people were actually excited to see. And what's Marvel's biggest win of the multiverse saga? Why, Deadpool and Wolverine. A billion-dollar hit built around Hugh Jackman's take on the character. Then Marvel announces Robert Downey Jr.'s return. Not as Iron Man, as Dr. fucking Doom. So, after spending years telling us the future was all these replacement heroes, their biggest move is bringing back Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, that's the only possible solution, because that's the only shit that actually works. We're bringing back this anchor superheroes that are already being established in the core fan base's mind. That's their only option to save this dying idea of Marvel superheroes.
Introducing Dr. Doom. They absolutely panicked and caved. And that's fine, you know, I get it. It's what fans wanted right from the end of Phase 3. But part of the problem is how long it took. It wasn't after Endgame or Spider-Man Far From Home or even Doctor Strange 2 or Thor 4 or even Quantumania. It arrived at the final hour. with the thought that Doom and Wolverine and Fox's X-Men are so beloved, it'll be enough to reignite fan passion. So after all that, after the cracks, after the trilogy of terror, after the cascade of disasters, after the behind-the-scenes chaos, after years of Marvel insisting everything was fine, we finally arrive at the Avengers Doomsday trailer. And like I said, I felt absolutely nothing. I guess after years of terrible movie after terrible movie and horrible show after horrible show, you eventually just stop caring, just grow ambivalent. You know, you've just been disappointed too many times. And you know what's really sad? It killed more than my excitement for the new stuff. It changed how I look back at the old stuff too. The Infinity Saga used to feel untouchable, but now it's connected to everything that came after it. 5 years of mediocrity has a way of changing how you remember something. Then I noticed something funny about the trailer. Look at who Marvel puts front and center. Thor, Doctor Doom, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. Now look at everyone else. The Temu Avengers are technically there, but they almost feel like background characters. And this is supposed to be...
Yeah, the whole point of like Falcon being the new Captain America was Steve Rogers is retired and he handed over the shield to Sam Wilson. But what is even the point of that if Steve Rogers actually returning? Like, this is what I'm talking about. They panicked and brought back, trying to find a solution, brought back the old superheroes. But this is just a disaster waiting at hand.
Their era. That's obviously not an accident. Marvel knows who gets people excited. They just denied it for half a decade. And after spending years telling us these replacement heroes were the future, their biggest trailer leans almost entirely on the characters they know audiences already love. I just don't know whether they figured it out before the audience moved on. Maybe you all don't feel like me. I bet some of you do, though. Maybe bringing in Doctor Doom, Wolverine, the X-Men, and Fantastic Four is exactly the reset this franchise needed. I really hope it is. Because contrary to popular belief, I never want Marvel to fail. I want the opposite. Hell, I spent years making videos trying to explain what I thought was going wrong because I wanted these movies to be great again. I wanted Marvel to course correct before it got to this point. Eventually they did.
Bro, I think it's dead, bro. Like, the movie's gonna be wildly successful. Like, people are gonna watch it anyway. Like, I think like story-wise and execution, and fulfilling the needs of the core fan base itself, the same fan base, the loyalist fan base who fell in love with the Avengers and all that movies, Avengers series itself, they're gonna find it extremely disappointing because it's gonna be like they're gonna be a bunch of superheroes, X-Men, Deadpool, all the shit with no proper execution. They're gonna bring everyone together, and this is gonna create a clusterfuck of like bad story writing. Like, that's 100% what's going to happen. But people are gonna watch it anyway, like, because they want to see if this movie actually will succeed whatsoever, and they'll be highly disappointed. Also,
But the course correction came after years of burning bridges and
if you bring a lot of superheroes to the movie, it's truly very hard to focus on one superhero, focus on one aspect of superhero, and give them more screen time and character development. Like, it's really hard if you bring in every fucking superhero on the fucking Marvel roster to a single movie. It's gonna be terrible. Clusterfuck anyway. Like, that's my prediction.
burning through trust they'd spent a decade building. Trust is easy to lose, but a lot harder to earn back. So maybe Doomsday is the beginning of
And this is gonna be like a cash grab.
something special. I'd love nothing more than to walk out of that theater feeling the way I used to. Excited and obsessed again. I miss caring about the MCU. It's like being sick and tired of being sick and tired. Maybe Marvel can earn people back. It's just that a trailer, it's not enough anymore. Before I go, a quick shout out to everyone over
Yeah. So I stop watching superheroes. Like, it's just like at this point, like, superhero fatigue, bro. Like, it is childish. What I'm just gonna say to keep it a buck. It is fucking childish. Like, what's anime? Like, read manga, not comics. Like, fuck superheroes, bro. Like, what's anime?